Module 3 helps us transition away from these conceptual big ideas that hopefully by now we've embraced from Chapter 1. Ideas like growth mindset, successful intelligence, emotional intelligence, learned optimism, responsibility and planning, self-control, and self-sufficiency. Hopefully by now you have started to realize the importance of these big ideas in your life and success as a college student. Once we've embraced some of the main themes behind them, such as our intelligence is not fixed, that any ability or talent or intelligence can grow with effort and practice, we now need to move into the next section of the course and starting to learn how we can use this general knowledge to have us show up, practice, and effort, but then how we can maximize the effort that we put in, maximize the effort, maximize the time, and learn to work smarter and not harder. And that's where we're moving now. So now that we've embraced these big ideas, we know that we can grow and develop with effort. Now we want to tweak those behaviors and get the most out of that time and out of that effort. Gathering self-knowledge about who we are, our unique way of processing the world as thinkers and learners, will help us align strategies that may help us work in some subjects. But one thing that we have to recognize is that we use all of these preferences all of the time. As college students, we're going to learn to use these preferences so that we can make good decisions and so that we can solve problems, so that we can make good decisions inside the classroom. We can solve problems as to what are the best study strategies for learning a particular subject. In theory, we will always have to use new strategies as the learning becomes more challenging and as we diversify the subjects that we're covering. How we can learn to use technology in order to assist in the reinforcement and how we receive information in a way that matches our preference. But ultimately, and where we're moving in Module 4, is how can we use this information so that we can make informed choices about our careers, about our workplaces, matching our work environment, matching our strengths and our preferences with a particular career. When we use the term learning preference throughout Module 3, we're really talking about two different habits of the mind. One is how you receive information, and the multiple pathways to learning and some elements of the BE really focus on this aspect. So what are your preferences for how information comes in? And then the next function is how do you process this information? How do you make sense of it? How do you draw conclusions? How do you make decisions? So once the information comes in, how do you make sense of it in order to interpret the world around you? Now, these are wonderful life skills that we can use to develop both in college and our careers. So in this module, we're focused on the course objective that asks learners to demonstrate an awareness and apply self-knowledge in relation to college, career, and life. But in order to do this, we need to unpack that objective. So in order to be able to apply it to solving problems and making decisions in college, career, and life, first we're going to have to identify our personal learning styles and personality preferences, and we'll do these with in the textbook with completing the multiple intelligences, completing the personality spectrum, completing the BE, and some of this you've already even done in earlier modules. So once we identify our preferences, then we want to start laying it out and classifying these results so we can see trends, so we can see patterns and see what are the dominant strengths and the dominant preferences that emerge across all of these assessments. That will be really helpful, but then we want to break down the process for problem solving and decision making. So the second assessment here, the problem solving assignment, will allow us to practice that. So we will learn to outline the steps in problem solving and decision making and then use this in order to solve real problems in our lives. Now, particularly for this module, we'll be using this information to solve problems or make decisions pertaining to the college classroom, particularly a course that might be challenging to you right now. But as we move forward to Module 4, we will be using the same self-knowledge again to and apply this to the problem of solving what we want to be when we grow up, or making the decision as to what will be our career choice and our educational path to get there. So that's how this work all ties together. So let's take a look at Module 3. As always, you want to remember to use the deadlines and the due dates outlined in your schedule of activities in announcements and then also in the assignment areas in Blackboard. So let's take a look first at the Module 3 study activities that will help us prepare for meeting the assessments in this module. Remember that you always want to make sure that you are reading the chapters before attempting the study activities. Now here is the first module where you actually have to read 2 different chapters. If you are organizing your time and how you're managing the steps in completing each of the assessments, just know that Chapter 4 is going to assist you with M3A1, which is the self-portrait, and then Chapter 5 is really going to assist you with the problem-solving and decision-making process, which is the focus of M3A2, the problem-solving flow chart. So make sure before attempting the self-portrait assignment, you're at least reading Chapter 4. Within Chapter 4, there's the Multiple Intelligences assessment, and that's on pages. You'll find the Multiple Intelligences assessment between pages 82 and 85 in your textbook. The introduction comes earlier, and then the assessment itself is provided towards the later pages. Once you're done completing the Multiple Pathways to Learning assessment, which is in your textbook, you will record your results, identifying which are the preferences that are highly developed versus moderately or lower developed. There are some really great charts in this chapter, so make sure you're bookmarking these and turning to each of the charts throughout the Chapter 4 so that you can find descriptions for somebody with a strength in this type, the abilities for somebody with a strength in these types, and you can use these later in further refining your definition of these different intelligence areas. The personality spectrum that is in your textbook is loosely based on the work of Myers and Briggs, which is based on Carl Jung's typology research. It is a much shorter assessment, and you will be taking the Myers-Briggs later on in this course, and you will be able to see the parallels. So again, in this assessment, you will be completing a questionnaire, and it starts on pages. Additionally, your personality spectrum will be assessed here, and that is between pages 85 and 89. Again, you will answer the questions and then plot your strengths on the grid provided in your textbook, ultimately coming out with a dominant area. We usually find there are 2 areas that are dominant, but my advice is to go through and read the adjectives that are used to describe these types and jot these down as further explanation for your type. So you can use this when you create your self-portrait later on. So for example, if you were introducing yourself to a future employer and you wanted to market your abilities, instead of saying, "Hi, I am a thinker and that's why you should hire me," you can use some more words to describe and explain what your strengths are. You can say something like, "As a thinker, I have a technical and scientific mind, which provides me with a rational and analytical focus to problem solving. I can usually take big problems and break them down step by step and then communicate those ideas effectively with others." So that's an example. You want to be able to use more words to define and explain what the strengths are in that area. So the next and last study activity that's pertained to your self-portrait in this folder is the Building Excellence Learning Styles Assessment. Now, please make sure that you are downloading these directions and you are using these directions in order to complete this assessment. We've experienced some difficulties with students not being able to log back into the website, so it's really important that you're using these to log in, but also the tips for saving and printing your document. So you will actually be taking the BE survey through your MyIRSC. There you'll have to log in with your student ID and your password. And then once you are inside My IRSC, you will use this toolbar up here. You'll find information. You'll drop down to BE Survey, and you will be prompted to create a login and sign up. I advise you to use your My IRSC email and make sure that it's typed correctly, because if you have any issues, we'll use that to retrieve your results. It will prompt you for the 5-digit access code. It's here, 2GN7N. Please do not pay for the website. That has already been provided for you with this access code. And then you will click launch. Now when you're done, you'll have the option to save or print 3 different reports. My advice is that you print either the BE overview or the BE full report if you can spare the paper and the ink cartridge. The BE full report is going to give you very specific strategies targeting your learning style. Those assessment or those study activities will be enough for you to complete the self-portrait. So if you're dividing that up, you can approach it that way. And then as you're coming back to the problem solving, you can come back and you can read chapter 5, which is problem solving and decision making, and then also watch this video here in order for you to attempt M3A2.